Karen? Karen, can you hear us?
Yes. Hello.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, distinguished guests. Welcome to YouthADAPT, driving locally led adaptation and resilience in Africa's climate hotspots. Organized in collaboration with the African Development Bank and the Global Center for Adaptation as part of the Gobeshona Global Conference. In the face of escalating climate crises, particularly in Africa's climate hotspots, there is an undeniable and a very urgent need for innovative approaches that empower local communities and also enhance their adaptive capacities. So today we gather here to shed light on the transformative power of youth-led initiatives and recognizing the pivotal role that young leaders play in spearheading locally led adaptation efforts across the continent. Over the next few minutes, we will delve into the heart of youth-led approaches, exploring their effectiveness and discussing ways to amplify their impact. So together, let's embark on this journey, discovering, learning, collaborating as we work towards a more resilient and adaptive future for Africa's climate hotspots. Please join me as I welcome Dr. Alhamdu Dorasumam, Manager of Climate Change and Green Growth in the African Development Bank, for the welcome address and opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first welcome you all to this very important webinar titled YouthADAPT, Driving Locally Led Adaptation and Resilience in Africa's Climate Hotspots, hosted by the African Development Bank and the Global Center on Adaptation on the sidelines of the 4th Global Gobeshona Conference. As you may already know, the Global Gobeshona Conference is convened virtually by the International Center for Climate Change and Development, and it serves as a platform for local and international researchers, scholars, policymakers, and practitioners to collaborate and amplify the ingenuity of local communities in tackling climate change and monitoring progress. This year's theme, Monitoring Locally Led Adaptation and Resilience, underscores the critical importance of grassroots efforts in combating climate change. Let me first set the stage for this webinar. As you know, Africa is home to the world's youngest population, holding immense potential for driving resilience and innovation. Yet, up to 50% of Africa's youth will face the specter of unemployment or economic inactivity by 2025. Despite the continent's burgeoning green economy, many young people still lack the necessary skills to capitalize on market opportunities as outlined in the country's nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement, worth about $3 trillion by 2030. This gap in education, finance, and training limits African youth's ability to seize business prospects, hindering their economic empowerment. In response to this and to other pressing challenges, the African Development Bank and the Global Center on Adaptation have recently joined forces to create the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, AAP, with a goal to mobilize 25 billion by 2025. The AAP program is committed to fostering climate resilient development across Africa, with pillars spanning agriculture and food security, resilient infrastructure, youth entrepreneurship, and innovative financing. Within the youth and entrepreneurship pillar of the AAP program lies the YouthADAPT Challenge, which is a program designed to spur job creation and innovation among African youth. Through an annual competition that grants $100,000 to each winner and participation in a one-year acceleration program, the YouthADAPT programs empowers young entrepreneurs to develop and scale climate change adaptation solutions tailored to African needs. These solutions, ranging from drought-resistant seedlings to rooftop farming and smart irrigation schemes, address specific climate risks and opportunities while promoting climate resilience, among many others. To date, the AAP program has invested over $5.4 million in supporting 41 young entrepreneurs across 20 African countries. This funding, sourced from the bank's Youth Entrepreneurship Multi-Donor Trust Fund and the Global Center on Adaptation, aims to nurture youthful innovation and enterprise. In addition, the $1 million from the bank's African Climate Change Fund, ACCF, is being used for boosting women-led enterprises, harnessing cutting-edge technologies for climate adaptation solutions. These women-led enterprises were unveiled at COP28 in December 2023. As we gather for this webinar, I encourage you all to explore how we can better support meaningful youth participation in the climate agenda moving forward. While often portrayed as victims of climate change, young people in Africa are also key providers of innovative solutions, as exemplified by initiatives such as the YouthADAPT program. Let me conclude by saying that we should explore all ways in which such successful programs, such as the YouthADAPT, can be scaled up rapidly and sustained for the benefit of nature, planet, and people. I thank you very much for your kind attention, and I wish you all fruitful deliberations. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Alhamdu. That really did set the pace for what we are about to discuss today. And now it is an honor to invite Edith Ofwana-Adera, the Regional Principal Climate Change Officer and AAP Coordinator, to give us an overview of the YouthADAPT and its early impact.
Thank you very much, Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. And hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to do a quick presentation on the YouthADAPT program, which is a flagship program of the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program. I'll give a bit of context, just trying to move my slides. Okay, great. So I'll give a quick overview of the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, which is a program, a partnership program between the bank, the African Development Bank, and the Global Center on Adaptation. The program aims to mobilize 25 billion until 2025 to support adaptation efforts in the continent. The program has been running since 2021, so we are in our 4th year of the program. The program has 4 pillars. One focuses on digital agriculture, so looking at how we can use climate smart technologies to support agricultural production and food security in the continent. The second pillar focuses on building resilient infrastructure. The third pillar focuses on youth, jobs and entrepreneurship, and the YouthADAPT program falls within this pillar. The last but not least pillar focuses on transformative adaptation and resilience finance and seeing how that can be mobilized to support efforts across the continent. The program up to date has been supporting initiatives in the 4 pillars across the continent. So far, we've supported 46 projects in 36 countries, with 25 of those being large investment operations and 21 technical assistance projects in the continent. I'd like to give a bit of context in terms of the Youth Challenge. As you all know, by 2050, we'll have about 830 million youth in the continent, and the youth population in Africa is rapidly growing. An estimated 50% of youth will either be unemployed or discouraged or economically inactive by 2025. We know that the COVID pandemic has been a bit of a challenge, and that continues, its effect continues to be felt. Climate vulnerability is affecting the youth the most, yet they do not have adequate adaptation skills to be able to respond. One of the greatest challenges that youth have is access to finance. So there's a huge finance gap. And there's need for us to leverage the innovativeness and the energy of the youth. And this is precisely what we've been doing under the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, particularly the YouthADAPT pillar. This is a program within the YouthADAPT pillar. Apart from working on the enabling environment and integrating jobs into investment operations, we also have an annual challenge. And the annual challenge is open to youth entrepreneurs in the continent. We've been running this challenge since 2021. Last year, we unveiled the 3rd cohort of the YouthADAPT at COP 28. The YouthADAPT program provides grant funding to youth enterprises. We give them about $100,000, and they also get technical support over a 12-month acceleration program. So we basically target youth that are at early stage of their enterprise journey, and we target youth between 18 and 35. And we also target 50% women representation, and we've actually been able to meet and surpass that target. The youth who join the YouthADAPT program are also able to join the YouthADAPT alumni network, which they will be launching in Nairobi in May at the sidelines of the bank's annual meetings. So far, we've funded 41 youth winners across 20 African countries, and we're really targeting to increase this number. And they also get tailored business services. We've received very interesting and very impressive results from the YouthADAPT winners that we've supported so far. They've created over 8,500 jobs, both direct and indirect jobs. They've also been able to get additional financing over and above what we've provided by about 700,000. We've seen profitability increase in their enterprises by 12%, and about 20% of the first cohort have gone and expanded into new markets. And 50% of them are women-led, as I mentioned. We've also seen an increase in their revenue of the first cohort by about 123%. So the results are very impressive, and definitely it shows that it's worthwhile investing in young people. If you look at the sectors in which they operate in a range. Majority of the enterprises are in the agricultural sector. We have a number of them in waste management and also water management. So in agriculture, it's a wide range in which they are engaged. This just gives a snapshot of real photos from the ground, showing the difference that they are making on the ground. There are those who are exporting. There are those who have connections with other investors outside of the continent. I'd like to close by sharing 4 lessons that we've learned in implementing this program. One of the things that we've realized that while one may target enterprises at a particular stage, we need to provide support across the value chain, from those at startup stage to those at later stages in the entrepreneurship journey. We've also realized that networking and collaboration amplifies their impact, and that's why the alumni network is important. We've also realized on the other end, while you could support youth enterprises, you also need to work with the financial intermediaries. These are financial institutions that need to unlock the financial resources to actually support youth enterprises. So helping financial institutions green their portfolio and also introducing de-risking instruments that would allow them to then lend to young people. And then finally, what's important is to provide post-acceleration support and transition enterprises from grant-based financing to blended finance so that there's sustainability and we could also have a long-term impact. So with that, thank you very much, Karen, and I hand over back to you.
Thank you very much, Edith, for that encouraging overview of YouthADAPT. And I must say that as an African youth, I feel like my future is very safe. And it's amazing to see millions of people around the world come together to collaborate, to find solutions to the problems that youths around Africa are facing. And with that said, I think it's important for us to have a conversation around empowering communities and how we can unlock locally led adaptation solutions. And with that, I will be calling on our panelists to discuss this topic. I would like to call on Mr. David Jonathan Pediachi. I hope I pronounced your name well. Thank you very much for being here and for joining us. He is the founder of The Big Short in South Africa. Next, I would be inviting Prabhakar Vanam, CEO of KCIC Consulting Limited. Mr. Prabhakar, you are welcome. Next, we have Yvette Ishimwa, the CEO of Iriba Water Group Limited and a 2022 YouthADAPT winner. It's amazing to have you here. If the panelists are here, it would be awesome if you could put your camera on as your name is mentioned to facilitate a better and a wonderful conversation. Hello. I would also like to invite Stephanie Meltus of Green Eden Farms, Nigeria, a 2023 YouthADAPT winner. Hello, Stephanie, you're welcome. It's good to have you here. And lastly, I would like to welcome Dr. Atela Jowans, the Executive Director of Africa Research and Impact Network, Aaron, who is represented by Leah, I believe, Miss Leah. It's amazing to have you here. Hello. Awesome. So let's get this conversation started. I'll be directing my first question to Mr. David. As the founder of The Big Short in South Africa, could you elaborate on the sustainable model that you employ when working with youth and how it generates long-term impact?
Thank you so much, Karen. And it's such a wonderful privilege to speak across Africa or across the globe on problems that every youth is facing in every country. And I think the main focus that even Edith touched on is hopelessness. And what we've been finding in South Africa is we have a high number of youth that are actually feeling hopeless in our communities. So 3 years ago, I came up with a concept whereby we use private sector that are doing innovative products within our communities, and we empower youth from the communities. We create a growth environment, and we alleviate fear, and we build confidence within them. While doing this, and it's very amazing, because I'll just give you a quick example. I was walking in a township called Shishego, and this is in Limpopo in South Africa, in the rural parts. And as I was walking the streets, there was a lady that walked up to me and she touched my back. She said, "Sir, can I help you? You look like you're out of place." And I was like, "No, sister, I'm here to help you. Come with me, you are hired." And she stops me and says, "Sir, I'm a beggar." I'm like, "No, sister, you were a beggar. Now you're a project manager and I'll show you." And that's how simple we need to we must not complicate it. What we're doing is we need to put them forward. And the only way we're going to alleviate fear from our youth is that we get them exposed to it and put them into the driving seat and give them responsibility. And what I've seen is between 6 to 12 months, we've got sustainable entrepreneurs that are built not only with know-how, but confidence and faith within themselves and getting the job done. And that for me is exciting. And over the past 6 years, we empowered more than 10,000 youths' lives and created hundreds of SMMEs, and 60% of them are all female-owned. And that's the exciting part about it. What I realized is in our communities in South Africa, women entrepreneurs take care of the community better. They help others in need around them within the community. And in doing that, the private sector and their product, they grow. So it's a win for the private sector, it's a win for the youth, and it's a win for the communities. And I would love to see us implement this more across Africa and across the world, where we can really give tangible opportunities to our youth that excite them. Like we as adults and leaders need to give our youth more excitable opportunities, because that's where they glow and that's where they flourish. And that's what the Big Shot South Africa has done. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. This is truly encouraging and absolutely groundbreaking. And I'm interested to know, how do you plan to scale this across Africa?
So the main thing is telecommunications. And what Africa is lacking is that. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that, yes, our continent is going to grow. But how it grows and whose hands we direct the money into is critical for our continent's growth. That's the way I see it. So I believe telecommunications and fintech, we should start empowering our youth in that. And even though they grow within the private sector, they are building SMMEs within it. And it is going to be sustainable because the private sector will fund them if they're growing.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. That is truly amazing. And I love what you said about empowering women, and the fact that women are helping the communities around them. There is a saying that says, anything that you give a woman, she makes greater. You give her a house, she makes it a home. You give her groceries, she makes it a meal. You give her a smile and she makes it a heart. Anything that a woman comes in contact with, she multiplies and she enlarges. So we should definitely be encouraging women to take leadership and to take ownership. My next question is to Mr. Prabhakar Vanam, the CEO of KCIC Consulting. Your organization has supported the African Development Bank and the Global Center on Adaptation in implementing the YouthADAPT program. Could you discuss the conveyor belt approach that was used to provide comprehensive support to enterprises?
Thank you so much, Karen, for that. And David, appreciate your passionate speech on this as well. The lessons you learned from South Africa are quite valuable. And I guess it's also quite relevant to across Africa as well. So we as KCIC Consulting, Karen, had a privilege of working on YouthADAPT first cohort, and we are currently working on the third cohort as well. It was lovely to see Edith's presentation where we saw those beautiful pictures of impact being created on the ground, as well as the young youth entrepreneurs whom we could work over the past 2-3 years now. So across the two cohorts, Karen, we have deployed an approach through the YouthADAPT program again, something called as conveyor belt, where we kind of provide customized solutions based on the customer, based on the needs that we identify during the process. So what we typically do is we go into a process of identifying the needs because every enterprise is different, specifically more so in the adaptation space. Because an adaptation company working in the coast, their needs are different. An adaptation company working in a landlocked place, the needs and the demands and the gaps are kind of different. So we deploy a tool, a comprehensive tool, where we do the gap assessment, which kind of understands the business models on one side and also understands the climate adaptation aspects on the other side. So it throws out very comprehensive analysis as to where the company needs to go, where the entrepreneur, what's the dream and how they want to achieve it, and what are the current impediments that kind of restricts these companies in achieving those. So we kind of go, once you identify the gaps, then we kind of provide bespoke solutions, be it business advisory services, be it mentorship support, be it access to finance, because most of the companies are also struggling with regard to access to finance. Then we also talk about access to markets, because the product is there, the solution is there, the concept is beautiful, but how do we package it? How do we sell it? How do we identify the real buyer who is able to provide the value proposition to their particular product and services? So we kind of, once you identify, you kind of provide those hand-holding support, and that's what we call it as a conveyor belt, because every company is different, every service provider is different, every enterprise is different, every geographies are different. So we kind of bring them together, and through the YouthADAPT program and through the other programs that we are kind of implementing, depending on the need, somebody needs access to finance, we kind of provide that access to finance. Somebody needs within the financing aspects as well. There are some companies who are grant dependent, there are some companies who are equity dependent, there are some companies who are debt dependent. So not all companies require single one shot fits all kind of an approach. So it's about detailing that and kind of providing those services is what we call it as a conveyor belt. And we have seen, Karen, over the past 10 years of our implementation, that this is the approach that's kind of working very well with the enterprises, because you don't give them what you have, you give them what they need, is what is kind of working. So I'll stop there unless you have any questions, Karen.
Thank you very much. I think the importance of the services that you provide in implementing these initiatives is completely invaluable. And I know that you've touched on this a little bit, but I'd like you to speak a little bit more on how you believe this approach, contributes to effectively scaling up initiatives. I know you spoke about companies that are grant dependent and equity dependent. So how does this approach sort of facilitate them to enter a space where they are, independent and they're able to make decisions sort of on their own?
That's a very important question, and often it prompts a debate as to how do we scale up solutions. And I remember very promptly when we were at COP, African Development Bank president was talking about three things: speed, scale, and data. Right? We do require all of them at once, and that's something that we need to deploy across the platforms to ensure that we are scaling up programs successfully. Specifically, those programs which have really tested and proven during the pilot phase. And YouthADAPT obviously is one of such programs which has really tested through cohort 1, 2, and 3 and demonstrated considerable impact. So I think it's time to scale. Now, how do we do that? It's obviously a big challenge. So one of the things I'm always advocating, and I think it's quite relevant to YouthADAPT as well, would be to convert the YouthADAPT as from a program kind of a thing to kind of a facility. A facility which kind of provides one-stop shop solutions to all the entrepreneurs, whether the entrepreneur is a startup, whether the entrepreneur is a growth stage, early stage enterprise, whether the entrepreneur is a commercial stage, because the needs of a startup might be a grant financing. The needs of a commercial stage enterprise may not be grant financing, but it could be a debt financing. The needs of growth stage or early stage enterprises could be a blended finance kind of an approach. And there are quite a few lessons that we can learn. Couple of programs, just to give you an example. One of the programs that we are currently implementing in Kenya is called Sustainable Urban Economic Development, where FCDO kind of one donor provides a catalytic seed funding, a grant financing mechanism, which kind of the objective of that would be to unblock further financing, either debt financing or the private sector financing, so that the private sector operator comes in and kind of invest the capital as well as the manpower, and more importantly, the technical know-how, so that the local economic development can happen. Another program, investor readiness, obviously is a big challenge in this world. There are many donors on one side, there are many funders on the other side, and there are many investees on the other side. So how do you bridge that gap between the investor to investee is often a challenge. And that's where I think this investor readiness programs, this technical assistance kind of things really helps you. Because as an entrepreneur, I'm very excited, especially in my first year, second year, third year, I'm very excited, and I think I have the best solution in the world, and I can go to the market, pitch it, and then the dollars will flow. But often that doesn't work out that way. So you need to completely prepare your systems, your processes, your documentation, your legal, your capacities, your governance, all those kind of things. And that's how the investor would be potentially interested in you. Another challenge which we are facing, Karen, on one side, we do have challenges with the entrepreneur unable to attract funding, but on the other side, we also see enterprises unable to transition from grant dependent to a sustainable finance dependent instruments. Although they are ready, even though they would have mobilized 1, 2, 3 cycles of grant financing, but the opportunity to transition often is a challenge. The reasons, there are multiple reasons for this. The financial institutions, the innovative financing mechanisms that needs to happen isn't yet there. There are a lot of innovations that are happening in the blended finance space, but it isn't yet there. For firms like Green Eden Farms, for example, to kind of go to a financial institution and say, boss, I have secured A, B, C. Can you give me additional financing? Lack of collaterals, lack of a robust business plans, and all those kind of things obviously poses still the basic things are still a challenge. But I think if we were to convert that into a kind of facility with AFDB, Global Center of Adaptation, as well as the other donors putting in some kind of seed funding, which can prove catalytic, I think would be the way to go, where you can bring in 2 to 3 different type of instruments into one roof, and then scale it up in that sense.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prabhakar, for this insightful insightful insights, I would say. Your insights are truly, I completely agree, and something has to be done. And I would like to then channel our focus to the recipients of the YouthADAPT Awards, beginning with Ms. Yvette, the CEO of Iriba Water Group Limited in Rwanda. As a recipient of the Youth Award, do you mind sharing some insights into how your company, Iriba Water Group Limited's tap and drink business model has effectively facilitated access to water for rural and vulnerable communities in Rwanda?
Thank you so much, Karen. This is such an engaging webinar, and I'm very happy to be part of it. So Iriba Water Group is a social enterprise that focuses on providing affordable, safe drinking water to low-income communities. And we do that by installing like state-of-the-art water ATMs in public places and congested suburbs, as well as schools, to facilitate people have affordable drinking water. And then a portion of the profits that we generate from that is also invested in supporting rural water infrastructure, like rehabilitating boreholes, setting up water infrastructure in very hard to reach areas. And we've been doing that since 2017. And since when we received the YouthADAPT support, we have been able to expand to new markets. We're now present in Bangui, in Central African Republic, and also in Democratic Republic of Congo, in Goma. And we're very grateful for the support that we received. Not only the financing kind of support, but also the mentorship, like the business support. that we received. I remember in one of the coaching sessions that I participated in, my coach really helped me to see our customers in so many different ways that I had never thought about. And that really changed our direction and the way that we do things. And I think that's really one of the key importance of the program, really to help entrepreneurs, not only over mentoring them or over teaching them and training them, but also giving them, the resources to implement, everything that they learn, and we really learn best through doing. Throughout the process, I think we've learned a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've made quite good strides. And I think the experience that we gained by doing is really impressive. And I'm very grateful for the program, because it's not just about teaching and training entrepreneurs. It's also about giving them resources and letting them do it on their own. And that's that's really a big thing to help accelerate youth innovations in the climate space. So I think that's what I would say about the program and Deriva.
Thank you very much, Yvette. What you've shared is truly a testament of the amazing work that YouthADAPT is doing across Africa. And it's so inspiring to see actual stories of people that have benefited from, the initiatives that organizations are putting together. And I would like to ask you a question. You spoke about the fact that you provide affordable and accessible, safe drinking water. And with this model that we've been speaking about, promoting locally led adaptation solutions, how does this model actually do that? How does it make sure that, or how does it ensure affordability and accessibility of safe drinking water?
Thank you, Karen. So how it works is we now, since the YouthADAPT program enabled us to try something new, something that we have never tried before. Normally, we connect our water ATMs, so they are all in one kind of machines with inbuilt purification technologies and smart vending technology. So we used to only connect them to municipal tap water or borehole fed water, and then water is purified and is sold at a very cheap price, 70% cheaper. And we were only focusing on the mitigation part of our work, where we only, dispense our water in reusable containers, trying to discard disposable plastics in the drinking water industry. But then with the YouthADAPT funding, we were able to test also tapping into rainwater harvesting in terms of as a new source of our raw material, if I can say, but also not only that, but also acting as to inspire as a model for rainwater harvesting practices. So we employ innovative rainwater harvesting technologies, and the fact that our water ATMs are in public places where different people see them. Now they can see that actually rainwater is safe water. We can properly harvest rainwater and implement similar technologies in our homes, and really to change that mindset about rainwater, that it's not really just a disastrous thing that will come and cause flooding, that it can actually be used properly. And that's really something that we've been able to do with the YouthADAPT funding, and it's working really well.
Congratulations once again. That is beautiful to hear. Thank you so much, Yvette. And I would like for us to hear from one more of the YouthADAPT winners from 2023, actually. Stephanie Meltus. I remember being at the award ceremony in COP28 and actually moderating that event, and Green Eden Farms really stood out to me, and the solution that they are building and working with was truly inspiring. And Stephanie, once again, congratulations on your achievement with Green Eden Farms in Nigeria. I would like
Thank
you to
you.
share your firsthand experience in driving climate adaptation efforts.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for having me on this space. It's really a privilege to be amongst all of you to share this impactful knowledge and learn as well. So I was, as a child born into a family of subsistence farmers, I couldn't understand the reasons why we're always having failed planting seasons. I didn't know why the rains were coming at seasons where they were not supposed to come. So they would damage the farm, they would reduce our yield and losses and destroy our potential for harvest at the end of the day. As I grew older, I found out that these were results of climate change. I began to hear whispers of climate change effects, adverse effects, destroying crops. And then I also found out that this was not just happening on our farms. This was a widespread effect. It was affecting not just our farms, it was affecting farms of our neighbors and in different places with different effects. We're seeing increase in crop pest diseases. We're seeing enhanced losses of produce. And so as I grew, it spurred me into the realization that we had to do something about this. That these were situations that were bound to reoccur. It was not just going to stop at certain points. Climate change was actually going to its peak levels that we could not control anymore. So I had to think of adaptations. I had to think of ways to help the farm. I had to think of ways to help the farms of our neighbors and the farms of my community at large. So I put in years of research and I tried different mechanisms, different crude methods, because as of then we didn't have technology. So I tried different methods, irrigation, name it. We just tried everything. Some of which were, well, disasters. But then that didn't stop us. We kept on, we were resilient in our change. Now, along my path to find solutions to these problems, I was meeting like-minded people. I was meeting people that had the same hunger and passion to actually be able to curb all of these vices. And so in my path to discover solutions and adaptive technology, Green Eden was founded with my co-founder, Mr. Theophilus. Now, the founding was just the start of all of it. We began to encounter challenges like, because we had to buy technology, we began to encounter challenges like border control, exchange rates, and that's because we're buying foreign technology. So we had to think, my team and I had to come together and think, how do we make this? We're trying to live a sustainable life here. We're trying to develop agriculture in Nigeria, but then we're also trying to do that under the cost. So we had to think, how do we curb all these vices? How do we limit our limitations? So we began to think, oh, these are actually components we can bring together in where we are. We can assemble our components by ourselves. We can create cost-effective methods. So then that's how we built our Scarego app and also our hardware components. Now, after we've surpassed that challenge, then came the challenge of bridging the cultural gap. Now, according to the Global Association of Telecommunication Firms, as of 2020, it showed that only 32% of rural farmers had access to mobile phones. And then that was going to be a limitation because we had to bridge that gap. We had to cement the effect of these farmers not having access to our technology and our produce. So we built our farm management systems, which we have been able to implement through a pilot in northern Nigeria, which has enabled us to be able to reach farmers. At the same time, we are curbing the effects and the adverse effects of climate change and promoting sustainability in agriculture while championing the cause of precision farming.
That's amazing, Stephanie. Your hard work truly has paid off, and it's incredible to see what you're doing and how far you will go. What advice could you offer to other young leaders like yourself that are also seeking to make positive changes in their local communities?
Thank you for that. So as a 20-year-old entrepreneur, I think the first thing that I would say is to find a cause you're passionate about. So usually you don't have to look too far to find this. It's usually within your immediate environment. There's always that cause that you have that pressing need to solve. Now, while you're doing this, when you've gotten your passion, you have your drive, then I think my next advice would be to get mentorship. because that will align you with the path you're supposed to go to. That's going to give you leverage above all other people who are trying to do the same thing that you're doing. You're getting guidance and you're getting value at the same time. Now, I'll also say that we're youths and we have life, we're full of life, we're supposed to be full of life, yes? So I think you should also harness that phase of your life, harness your youthfulness. So while you're being adventurous, you're also being directed rightfully. Yeah, that's my advice to the youth.
Thank you. That is truly very great advice. And I hope that the young leaders that are in this webinar have taken note of that and will utilize that advice to their advantage. And now I would like to address my last question to Ms. Leah. Locally led climate metrics are crucial for understanding how effective adaptations and their interventions actually are. And I know that you are developing climate metrics to capture the impact of locally led efforts and initiatives. So what dimensions do these metrics capture, and what factors should be considered to ensure comprehensive results are obtained for these locally led initiatives?
Thank you so much, Karen. Please confirm that you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So my name is Leah Aoko from the Africa Research and Impact Network. Currently, as you've correctly pointed out, we are implementing the locally led adaptation metrics for Africa project. And in this, we are basically looking at, it's premised on the Paris Agreement 2015 and the Global Goal on Adaptation, which we are all perhaps familiar with. And we are basically looking at increasing efforts to develop complex climate change adaptation metrics at the local level. We all know the importance and the essence of driving adaptation from the communities and from those who are impacted the most, from the vulnerabilities that are there. And so what we are looking at is recognizing the fact that some funded adaptation interventions are not needs driven. And this is the gap that LAMA, the locally led adaptation metrics for Africa project, is looking to sort of fill in. And when these projects, adaptation projects, are not needs driven, they do not align with the priorities for vulnerable groups, whether it's the women, whether it's the youth, whether it's the business people or smallholder farmers that you're working with at the Lake region. And so here we just want to look at what is the efficacy of these initiatives, what are the indicators of success, and how does success look like for these vulnerable groups. So success for a women's group will be different from success for the youth, for example, or for the men, or for the farmers, or for the business people, or persons with disabilities. So this is the golden chain that we're just looking to bring and to bring into the adaptation discourse, looking at how various locally led adaptation initiatives can be aligned correctly to the priorities of vulnerable social groups where we are working at. So right now the project is being implemented at the Lake region, that is in 14 counties, and we are looking to replicate this in West Africa, specifically in Benin. And we are still engaging with the local communities and the various social groups that I have mentioned, and trying to scope out their priorities, trying to sort of co-create preliminary indicators of what is being implemented and how they think that would be successful, or what are the success indicators at their level. We are also engaging the county government, and here we have had successful stakeholder buy-in, yes, the goodwill from the government and the county officers. And they're really asking, where have you been all this while? Because we are implementing projects, but we need to know, are they successful, and how are we going to determine whether they're successful or not? We've also engaged the FLOCA. Perhaps some of us may be familiar with this, that is being implemented in Kenya. And FLOCA is basically financing locally led climate action. And so it's being implemented at the county level. And we're using this quote unquote sister project to complement the objectives that Llama is looking to achieve. And so in terms of inclusivity, we're really looking to get in more voices, especially from the youth and the persons with disabilities, for them to engage in the co-creation process. We've been working with the Adaptation Consortium and the Grassroots Impact Center just to help us to solidify or concretize some of the initiatives or the engagement that we're having at the community level. So basically, Llama, the beauty about Llama is that it strengthens the contents of the global goal on adaptation. We all know that this framework was put forth at COP28, and it highlighted key areas for adaptation initiatives, including food, water, and health. Now, Llama is hinged on the food security aspect, but we know that all these aspects are interrelated in one way or the other. So basically, the gap we are looking to fill is that the global goal on adaptation really has or lacks specific measurable indicators to track the on-ground progress for achieving locally led adaptation. And so here we are looking to define these indicators using the vulnerable groups. We're looking to drive the national efforts on adaptation and resilience to strengthen and track support for adaptation action. So I think this project, even at its preliminary stages, is critical to meet the needs of various vulnerable groups, even in that region where it's been implemented, but possibly for replication in other areas. And also just to mention that right now we are also engaging at the government level to look at how, aside from what we are implementing in the project, we are having conversations with the Adaptation Fund and with Global Innovation Fund towards supporting adaptation initiatives for the youth and other vulnerable groups. And yeah, definitely happy to explore possible partnerships with the Adaptation Accelerator Program at the FDB, which I think Edith has presented, and it's really useful and speaks to some of the aspects that Llama is looking to achieve. So having mentioned that, I'm happy to hand over to you, Karen, for any questions and clarifications, and really glad to be listening into other initiatives and what people are doing around adaptation for the youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah, for that comprehensive share. I had a question, and my question is, what do you think the biggest limitation is that you've encountered in your journey?
Wow. Thank you so much, Karen. I think when you say limitation, there are, quite a number. But I think just the fact that developing indicators is highly localized and highly contextual, and you sort of have to harmonize the needs of various vulnerabilities, people who have been routinely overlooked when you're in the adaptation discourse, persons with disabilities. So really engaging the communities and helping to harmonize all these indicators, I think poses a challenge, a surmountable challenge, I can say, because I think with accurate focus and with the learnings and lessons that we'll be looking at through the Llama project, I think we'll be able to sort of put forth all their needs and highlight these co-created indicators for uptake at the county level, at the national level. And just to mention that it would go a long way in strengthening the global goal on adaptation and progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Leah. That is amazing. We have finally reached a point where the audience can now ask any questions that they have to the panelists that are with us. If you have a question, kindly put it in the chat and we will be able to see it. And also please mention who you are directing your question to. I can see that somebody's hand is raised. Sandia De Mello. If you have a question, kindly put that in the chat. So we'll just give everyone a few minutes to come up with their questions, and I will be picking on a few. Okay. So we have a question from Sandhya De Mello. She says, or he says, they say, hello, everyone. How do you propose to create awareness in the UAE? This is an interesting one. I think I would pick on Mr. David to answer that if he has an answer to that.
I'm more than happy to. So how do we propose to create awareness in the UAE? I think it's very simple. I think we start at the ground roots level and we start with the youth and we make them more aware of what is going on in the world. Like, to be honest, I just got introduced to all of you all and it's so exciting. And if I was not aware to this, I wouldn't have known that there's so many people fighting the same cause globally. And I'm sure in the UAE, we have passionate individuals that are driving youth development and are driving young entrepreneurs. And I think if we give them a mic and allow them to be more vocal and present what they're doing there, I think that would increase the awareness in the UAE.
Thank you very much, Mr. David, for that insight. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to add to what Mr. David has shared with us? Any of the panelists, that is, you can go ahead and unmute.
Can I come in there, Karen?
Yes, please.
I guess not just for UAE, but I guess this is generally applicable specifically to the African context as well. Communication, I guess, Karen, is one of the most important area where we need to do some targeted communication, targeted campaigns, specifically if you're targeting youth-based as well as women-based organizations. There was a time where everything was advertised through newspapers. These days, we don't even advertise in the newspapers. So there is a transition, and there is a reason why the transition happened. Everything is on phones these days, and specifically if you are targeting youth women, there is so much on the digital campaign that we have to embark upon in order to reach the right people. That said, there are many enterprises in the rural areas as well who have some issues in terms of connectivity and all those kind of things. To that particular target, I think there are a lot of elders, influencers locally available. I think that's one of the means that we have chosen at KCIC Consulting as well to ensure that the message, the information reaches out to the right person at the right time. With a motto that that the campaign should reach a real innovator, real company or enterprise who has a concept or whatever. So similarly, I think I guess it's the same thing in UAE as well. Maybe it's slightly advanced. So we need to deploy certain better tools. And as David has also mentioned, there are some passionate people whom we can tie up with.
Thank you very, very much for those insights. I believe we have done justice to that question. Yvette, there is a question for you here from Lara Espirito Santo. She would like to ask if the work of Ariba Water Group Water Services supply offers complemented with BC campaigns by the company or other partners.
Sure. We definitely have part of our work is also to undertake campaigns, like community-based campaigns, to educate people, to drink water. So it used really to educate the community, but also at the same time it serves us as our marketing avenue. And so, yeah, we do have those campaigns. I'm not sure if I responded what she asked, but yeah, campaigns wise, that's what we do.
I think you responded very well. Thank you very much, Yvette. So we have quite a number of questions here. Okay. Can this program support? Okay, sorry. All right, it doesn't seem like we have any questions directed to any of the panelists, but Oh, Dr. Joanne Zatella is here with us. And she has put in something in the chat, and she says, it's critical to rethink the framing of youth in the global challenges. The need to shift from portraying the youth as victims who are excluded from opportunities is a bit limiting. The need to reprofile the strength of the youth, their innovation, and what they are bringing to the table. This might help the youth to push for a shift in systems that have traditionally excluded them from decisions and opportunities. Thank you very, very much for that, Dr. Atala. Absolutely. All right. Okay, so I believe that this question is for Miss Leah Aoko. And it says, how do you balance between the efforts of advocacy and those groups that are actually action-oriented, especially towards how they can benefit from carbon credits?
Thanks, Karen. And perhaps I'd like to combine it with the question of encouraging the young people in research, because what we have discovered is that without evidence, and especially for policy uptake, it will be a bit challenging and extremely difficult. So I think we are urging more and more groups to sort of use evidence-based research as a basis for their advocacy efforts. Because when you engage with county level or policy makers or decision makers or knowledge users depending on your context, what they're going to ask you is, okay, we need the statistics. Where is the data? Where is the evidence? Have you engaged with community members? Have you engaged with the youth to discover that maybe what you're saying they want is not really what they want or how they want it to be done? So really in the adaptation discourse, we are liaising, or the organizations that we are liaising with at the county level and at the national level and internationally are those that we feel are more geared towards evidence-based use, evidence-based advocacy. And we have found that that yields more when you're engaging with other stakeholders.
Thank you very much for that, Leah. Fred, I hope you are satisfied with that answer. I definitely am. We have a question here that says, as a young Nigerian, I appreciate the advice coming from Stephanie and commend her efforts. My question is, how can young people in rural areas interested in initiatives like this be reached?
All right, so one of the things that Green Eden does is that we are currently running training programs, and we're trying to get people informed on the impacts of climate change as well as their roles in curbing this impact. Now we're providing opportunities for youth, for farmers, and as well our customers. So we're able to create a smooth transition for them to come into the industry. We're providing a platform for them to know there are opportunities that are available. All you really need is just be willing and open to learn, and opportunities are endless, really.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for that. Miss Edith, if you are here, there is a question that I think you are fit to answer. And it says, is there a research fund for youths taking research as a way of providing evidence-based analysis for policy adaptations?
Sorry, Karen, could you please repeat the question?
Sure. I said, is there research fund for youths taking research as a way of providing evidence-based analysis for policy adaptations?
Yeah, sure. There are grants. Within the YouthADAPT, we're focusing mostly on youth entrepreneurs, but there are funds from other agencies that provide funding to young researchers to do research and to inform the adaptation space. So yes, it does exist. One just needs to look for the opportunities.
Thank you very, very much. I hope that the person that asked this question has taken note of that. All right. Okay. Wow, we have a number of questions here. Okay, so this question is for Mr. Prabhakar. It says, in the context of the YouthADAPT program, which champions a conveyor belt approach, could you elaborate on the specific strategies implemented to fuel the growth of the program winners? How is your organization ensuring a seamless transition? I think you mentioned that, but maybe you could shed a little bit more light for this person, Elizabeth.
Thanks for that question, Elizabeth. I think, as I mentioned earlier, a conveyor belt approach takes into consideration a comprehensive solutions that you can offer to the enterprises. So typically, based on our experiences of supporting almost like 1,800 enterprises so far across the continent, we have come across 5 broad strategies. The first one is access to finance, where you kind of provide all kind of services under the access to finance mechanisms. It could be grant, finance, it could be equity, debt, whatever. The second, I think, which I think is the most critical element, would be the business advisory services. Again, based on customized need gap analysis that has been done, not just providing what you have, but providing what the enterprises needed. And this could be anything. Somebody needs blockchain support, somebody needs support on basic bookkeeping, somebody needs support on access to how do you package, how do you price it, somebody needs support in access to markets, kind of a thing. So whatever is the need is what you need to provide the business advisory services. And tied to the business advisory services would be the mentorship support as well, which we saw in our programs that, it has been quite effective. The one-to-one mentorship obviously helps. The third is access to facilities. More often, most of these entrepreneurs, before they start the entrepreneurial journey, are ideators. Now, how do you convert these ideators into a sustainable entrepreneur is where they require all kinds of support, including some facilities where they need to go and test the prototype, for example. Right now, they might not be having any resources to test the prototype. So how you can provide that facility for them to go and test the prototype. Then the fourth one, in today's day and age, Karen, I think information is critical. So you need to have all kind of information, the competitor info, the pricing info, the policy info, the tax implications, and various other things that you require. And more importantly, you also need to know where and how you can go and market. What kind of trade fairs are available, for example? How is your website looking like? How is your digital campaign looking like? How are you projecting your product? How are you projecting your service? How is your website? So all those kind of things in today's day and age has become very important. And last, not the least, would be the enabling environment, Karen, where a lot of enterprises would be having a very good product or service, but sometimes the policy could also become an impediment. So how do you create partnerships with government on one side, with policy think tanks on the other side, with private sector organizations, with civil society organizations, with donor community, as well as with the enterprises itself, the importers as well as the exporters, to create an enabling environment for seamless imports, exports, purchase, sales, everything for the entrepreneur. So those would be the 5 broad elements. And that's how this conveyor belt approach kind of works, providing customized kind of solutions to the customized needs.
Thank you very, very much for that. And lastly, our last question for this Q&A. Again, this is open to anybody to answer. It says, how can local foundations implement adaptation measures on climate change in a country where the government does not give full support for the movements, especially in terms of funding?
So I'll jump in there.
All right.
From South Africa. So if the government is not helping with funding, I would say we have a flourishing private sector in South Africa, in Africa and our whole continent. And we need to start being innovative. And the big private companies want to grow their base. And we just got to direct them to be more be more understanding to the challenges we face on this continent, and rather tap into that and find new innovative ways. Because as you all know, in South Africa, it's a bit of a challenge to work with government to get anything done in our communities. And if you're not part of the clique, you're not in. So private sector for me is critical. And we have to start adding immense value to private sector for them to have the mind shift, to see that the future for their marketing, the future for their distribution, the future for the growth of their organization is based on the people, and especially our youth in our communities. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, please go ahead, Ms. Leah.
Sorry, just to jump in on that. Indeed, it's very important that youth groups leverage on innovative financing mechanisms, innovative and blended financing mechanisms. Most times you'll find perhaps projects are not bankable enough, or the value add is not there. So a project might be good, an initiative might be commendable, but there are certain nuances where the youth need their capacity to be built or enhanced to enable them to competitively apply for funding opportunities or find other innovative ways. These days, funding doesn't just come from the public aspect. There's also the private aspect. There are international organizations that are very willing to fund these. YouthADAPT here, you know, and we've listened to their stories. So really just watching out, not only locally or nationally, but also internationally, how you can engage with other innovative financing mechanisms. Thank you.
Karen, I know we are short of time, but the question is very interesting. Can I just jump in there as well?
All right, you have 30 seconds.
No problem. I'll just say two things. As long as we are able to provide local solutions to the local problems, no one is going to stop. Doesn't matter if it is government, private sector funding, or donor funding, doesn't matter. People will seek to you as long as you are providing some solutions to the local problems that we are facing these days. Secondly, I would also advocate to create some awareness campaigns and build some public support. And I'm sure if you are solving some problems, the public automatically will come and support you. And today's day and age, there is so much of power everywhere, especially with the youth. I encourage you to forge some partnerships, and that's the way. I mean, there are many other solutions, but that's the easiest way to kind of open doors to kind of open multiple doors, if I may say, to get some external funding.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vanam, for that. You really stuck well with the time. All right, so thank you very much, our panelists, for this engaging conversation. It truly has been insightful. Please do not leave. We are about to finish, and at the end, we will be taking a lovely virtual photo, and I'd love to see each and every single one of you in it. At this point, I would love to invite Dr. Inga Jacobs-Mata, the Director of Water Growth and Inclusion in the International Water Management Institute. Dr. Inga, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Lovely to see you. Please go ahead.
Lovely to be invited to share a few reflections. Wonderfully rich conversation. Thanks for convening this. I was asked to sort of give just a few kind of reflections on, you know, what next? How do we ensure kind of, you know, moving away from a projectized approach for these kind of youth-led or youth-supported programs, and it's been interesting to hear how there's so many different perspectives, you know, in this call today. But what came out for me quite strongly, and this is also from my experience, you know, managing several of these kind of agribusiness accelerator programs largely in East and Southern Africa, but also globally. Scaling of or sustainability of youth-supported programs, it really requires a whole of system approach. You know, how do we strengthen the entire agribusiness ecosystem? Prabhakar and Leah spoke about the enabling environment. We hear all the time, if we can solve the inclusive finance challenge, then I can retire a happy person. Access to markets, all of those kinds of things. But also, how do we strengthen the capacity of the ecosystem? So that's something I sort of work in, right? In addition, we found that with a lot of these, with accelerator programs or, startup programs, that's great, but you kind of need to look at the whole pipeline. So how are you supporting, somebody had a question in the chat about how do you support research or capacity strengthening in this space? How do you work with universities to make sure that the departments are actually equipping graduates with the right kind of skills, right, to start up a business in the agri-food system? How are you making sure that the curriculum is shaped around scaling climate smart agriculture? How are you tailoring your internship programs to not only go to the big organizations, but actually be private sector facing, getting interns to be placed at SMEs, for example? So that's some of the stuff that we're doing largely in Southern Africa, in Zambia in particular, through a program with a lot of partners. But for me, the whole issue about, so if we are to move away from this project by project approach, we have to look at the pipeline, right? The second thing I wanted to say is also that there needs to be a level of coordination between organizations working in acceleration, working in, startup support. And I always say we can't have enough accelerator programs. There are, the opening speaker sort of gave the stats, right, on the fact that we have the fastest growing, youngest population in Africa. So there are many youth to support. We can't have enough of it. But there needs to be some coordinated approach. So if in a particular country, in a particular area of work, in a particular value chain, who are the players supporting SMEs? Who are the finance institutions? And how can we help each other leverage so that they are not these stop and start processes, that SMEs and startups need to go through. So I would just make a strong plea and a kind of and also a pledge from my side, to also work on that as somebody working in the space. And then the last thing I'll say, Karen, is just that, it seems like this is a developmental challenge that we have. How do we ensure that the youth of today have viable business opportunities for tomorrow, that we have economies, and governance systems that can support them? Now, that's a developmental mindset, right? But when we talk about the agribusiness ecosystem, it needs to survive in a market-based economy. So this is also some of, my thinking, where as we design accelerator programs, we start with the catalytic grants, we start with the technical assistance, we start with all these kind of requirements, which are very much in the developmental mindset. But then it requires SMEs to make this gigantic jump into the market space, where they can secure debt, equity, and deal with high interest rates and, all the kinds of enabling environment regulation that they have to deal with. So I think it also requires programs to rethink how we are designing programs, right? We can't get away from the developmental challenge, because that is also, our main mandates. But it does need a little bit of a shift in thinking around how we design accelerator programs. So let me leave it at that. I'll pop into the chat a few links, but I'm happy to engage with anyone further on these things. Thank you so much. Great dialogue.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Inga. This has been absolutely invaluable. Thank you so much. And now I would love to welcome Ms. Aramide Abe for the summary, reflections, and closing.
Thank you, Karen. I hope everyone can hear me. It's been such an interesting and engaging discussion today. My name is Aramide Abe. I lead the Jobs and Entrepreneurship Program at the GCA. Honestly, just listening to everyone, listening to the questions, I'm privileged to, first of all, be able to synthesize all the thoughts at the end of this session, and also just to share some learnings as we've implemented this program. Edith, my colleague, and I have done that over the last 3 years, 3 cycles. And so I'll start with that, and then I'll speak to some of the amazing points that were raised on this call today. In terms of the learnings for us, one thing that we've seen is a need to connect our enterprises with private sector funding. It doesn't, it's not enough to just remain as a business receiving grants, as we all know. And the key to sustainability is that ability to grow and, get, whether it's debt or mezzanine or blended financing, equity type funding. So that's one of the key learnings. And GCA has a strong mandate this year to really support our enterprises in linking them with private sector investors and banks as well. So that's one piece of learning. Another takeaway for us, coming back to funding as well, and I'll say that's a positive actually. Having worked with KCIC, we saw how they ran the needs assessment, which was critical to understanding the needs of these businesses, such that then the curriculum in the program could be customized to their needs. And of course then, I know I have my colleague Sarah on the call as well, we had most of our businesses raise additional types of funding, whether it's grant funding or equity. They did raise funding because they were able to be supported to then innovate, grow their businesses, address the gaps. I don't see that in many accelerators, actually, the whole needs assessment. Typically, you have an accelerator program and it's a standard curriculum. So I'll say that was a great intervention, and we've seen the success of that to the tune of $7 million and just over our enterprises have been able to raise to date, and outside of the AAAP funding that they received. So that's really good. One other piece of learning that I'll also share, and I know my colleague Edith raised it at the start as well, is the need for partnerships. We cannot avoid or overlook this strong need for partnerships, because it was mentioned we've supported 41 enterprises to date. For us to be able to scale, we need partners from an implementation standpoint, from a funding standpoint. And so I'll say maybe this is a call for partners, but also just to reiterate that that's a key learning and something that we're really using to redesign our program, like Dr. Inga mentioned, in terms of just reviewing the design of the program and seeing what we can move around to ensure that it's optimal and benefits the entire ecosystem. Now, just to sort of recap on some of the highlights from today, I cannot, stress that issue about getting our youth exposed and putting him in the driver's seat that David mentioned. I think that's critical. We've seen that the YouthADAPT Challenge is doing that very well in telling the stories of these businesses from before the program to after, the highlights, the quick wins, and we want to continue to do that. Vanam spoke about speed, scale, and data. Of course, that's at the center and the heart of what we're doing as well, which is capturing the learnings, the insights, and using that to then drive and even redesign further phases. And then Yvette, spoke about enabling innovation, how the YouthADAPT Challenge allowed her to do that, because prior to that, they couldn't explore an additional maybe business line or way they could innovate their business. So it's great that the funding support is necessary for that. And then, of course, Stephanie mentioned getting mentored and just harnessing the power of youth. I think it's a real charge to all our youth on this call today to say, it's one thing to want to do these things, but you also need the guidance and the mentorship, the continual guidance and mentorship, be it through programs. And we've got a great mentorship support system alongside the accelerator program. But of course, seek mentors where you can, apply to these opportunities and programs as well. And I think finally, I'll just say, that in the spirit of this week, where we're talking a lot about inclusion, Leah mentioned inclusion, and we've done well under the AAAP as to ensuring that we have well over a 50% gender mainstreaming target. So we're inclusive of our women for sure. But she mentioned something about vulnerable groups, and that's something we're going to look at in the coming cycles as to how we're ensuring that we're considering vulnerable groups. And to that point, I'd like to wrap this up, just to thank everyone for being here, for the valuable contributions, and just to again stress the need for partnerships, for scale, for the private sector, which David also reiterated again as how they're critical to the success of this, and wish everyone a successful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Aramide. That was truly insightful. I would like to invite Ms. Edith Ofwana.
Hi, Karen,
Ms.
can you
Edith.
hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to close by mentioning that we'll be having the launch of the YouthADAPT network in Nairobi in May, at the end of May. So please look out for the invite. We're also inviting partners. I like the point about partnership and building partnership and collaboration. So look out for the invite. Thank you very much. Over to you,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Edith. That's truly exciting. And with that, we have come to the end of this very insightful and engaging conversation. I must say that it has been an honor to moderate this event and to speak with such intelligent minds on the pressing issue of adaptation and driving locally led adaptation and resilience in Africa's climate hotspots. I would like to invite all of our speakers to have their camera on. Ms. Aramide, you're looking beautiful. We'd love to see you and take a picture. Dr. Alhamdu, I loved your suit. Can we please see it one more time? Awesome. I think we are ready for a picture. And now, with bright smiles and happy faces, let's take our picture. Mr. Joash, I believe you're facilitating the photo. Please tell us when we can stop posing.
Yes, just a minute.
No worries, we're ready.
There we go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a lovely
Thank you.
day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.